Welcome to Discover Indie Film. I'm Jeff Howard, and I am excited to have Nicholas Geisler with me on Zoom. Hey, Nicholas.
Hi, how's it going?
It is good. And I have to say, we are on Zoom, so I always give a little warning to people. I promise you, Nicholas and I are not stepping on each other's sentences, but there's a micro delay in the recordings of Zoom. So sometimes it sounds like we're cutting each other off. It's weird. It's weird. When you play it back, sometimes you're like, wow, they're talking over each other. Nicholas is on the podcast right now because his film, When You Became Us, was an official selection at the Sherman Oaks Film Festival last year in 2022. This film of Nicholas's won Outstanding Short Film Sci-Fi, Outstanding Director Sci-Fi, Outstanding Performance by an Individual, and Outstanding Performance by the full cast. So, bravo, golf clap.
Thank you. That's
And I loved it last year. I loved it watching it with the selection committee, and then watching the screening at the theater was just superb. The audience really loved it. As I recall, a lot of people mentioned it to me too after the fact.
Thank you. And you bring in a great group of people. I mean, it was a fantastic time as well. And fantastic block. I also just want to shout that out. A Romanian dance film, whose name I'm not quite remembering. Claire Cooney's film, which she is fantastic. The couple dealing with the trauma.
Yeah, after a love story. And the first one is, I think, Guest, right? The dance film
Guest. It was the hiking
one, right. Oh,
I feel bad I don't remember the titles, but I remember every single one of the films in
Black
that
Creek Trail, I think. Yeah, she's brilliant.
Yeah,
that was a great block.
I remember I can remember every single one of those films, and I was just very honored to be part of that block. It was a very, very fun set and fun afternoon.
For sure. And in fact, I think you're the second person from that block. Claire and Alyssa, who collaborated on After a Love Story, they did the podcast real quick.
Oh, awesome.
That was their last festival of their run, so they jumped in. But yeah, absolutely super block. And I believe you batted. Oh no, After a Love Story was the anchor because it's so emotional. But anyway, great block, great films, and I watched When You Became Us again this morning, preparing to talk to you since it's been almost a year because that was last November. I gotta say, it's so fucking good. It is so fucking good. And I'm super proud to share that it will be on TVHi. So eventually, either by the time you're hearing this or soon after you're hearing this, you'll probably be able to watch When You Became Us. It might have a new title. Either way, you can type in Nicholas with a CH if you want to try to find it, because he'll be in as director. But whatever. I'll leave that out. But if people go to watchtvhi.com, they can see When You Became Us, as well as a bunch of other fantastic indie films. But man, it is, like I said, it is so fucking good. And talk about praise. When you watch something repeatedly and you appreciate it more and enjoy it more every time, it just tells you how well written it is, how well made it is. Honestly, I'm surprised you didn't get shit like cinematography. Like, it looks great.
Thank you.
It's just so, and I am 100% certain I said this to you probably at your Q&A at the theater last year, which is, sci-fi, original sci-fi's rare to come across. And honestly, a lot of the sci-fi we love that we have at the festivals is fantastic sci-fi that is reminiscent of things you've seen before. Like, I think the joke is like Black Mirror's done everything now.
Yeah.
But you did something that Black Mirror doesn't. You know what I mean? Like, yours is, to me, mega original and mega unique. It'll hopefully, I don't know. We'll find out during this interview if you have a feature version of it in your back pocket. But if someone else comes out with a similar idea like 5 years from now, I will throw eggs at the poster because I'll be like, you took Nicholas's idea. I know you saw the short.
Well, thank you. I do have a feature in the pocket. It started as a feature. And it's funny you actually bring up Black Mirror. I should almost hesitate to say this, but I can't. The original idea was I love Black Mirror, and I want to spec something for them. That was actually the start of the very genesis years and years and years ago. And I did think there's kind of a dearth of this kind of story. And I think both a love story and how romance and connection, I mean, so much of the internet era is about connection, and how that's affected us on a personal level, on a micro level, as opposed to these kind of big macro things. And what is the most resonant connection but love, both getting into it and getting out of it. And so there is a feature. One of the big things of this summer has been, we have been scheduling it and getting a budget together. Obviously, without going into it, the hot labor summer, which I'm a very proud part of, has slowed some things down, but also created a lot of time for really thoughtful and positive discussions, not just about artistic community, but community in general. And to me, that's a big part of When You Became Us. It is about community and how we build relationships, whether that's between two people or a hive mind. And I really appreciate you saying that, because my goal was it to be sci-fi that I think I told the cast and the crew, everyone, department heads, this is a love story that happens to be science fiction. And I want us to ground us in something very, very relatable, and then throw this unique layer on top. And it was a real joy to do that. And like you said, we had just the best crew in the world. I mean, that's what I love about film. And, in some sense, this film is also kind of I think a little bit of a meta narrative on film, because I do think films are artistic hive minds. It is the greatest art form in the world for collaboration. It only works in collaboration. And when every single voice and every single individual comes together to create something bigger than themselves and the sum of their parts, that to me is what every great film is. Every department head, every actor, every staffer, every gaffer, every camera operator, that is film. And that, I think that was the joy on set. And I think it's how we were able to do a pretty gnarly shoot schedule for When You Became Us, and get it done, was kind of that joy and collaboration.
For sure. I mean, yeah, I'm tempted to jump into it and talk about how ambitious it was based on the number of locations and just what a great job you did. And so I mean, but we'll get to that. So let's go back in time, and right. I'm asking you the prepared question that you're getting, which is, I really respect your creativity. So when did you first get interested in either writing or filmmaking or photography? What got you started on the life of a creative?
Yeah, it's such a good question. There's a billion answers, I think, per person even. I actually think for me, there's two big childhood things. Both kind of revolve around my parents and my dad in particular. One, the re-release of Star Wars into theaters. I mean, I remember my dad taking me to see that when they put all of them back in theaters in the early 90s. And I was young, but I remember seeing written and directed by George Lucas and saying, like, what does that mean? It's like, oh, no, that's his job. He makes these. And I remember being like, that's a job? Like, you can do that? I remember telling my parents off the bat, like, that's what I got to do. I got to be that guy. I got to be able to do that. Because, I mean, look, I'm not the first or last person who's going to say Star Wars just created an entire world beyond even the last frame that just exists and excites people. And on top of that, I think my dad was a real bedtime storyteller. And he was a very good bedtime storyteller, and he wrote always original stories, and he had this continued narrative. Willie the Worm was was the go-to guy, and Willie did all these adventures. And some of my earliest memories was hearing my dad make up original stories and keep a continued narrative. I mean, look, I'm sure he had some continuity hinks here and there, but I remember this continued narrative every night. And between those two things, I just loved, putting on little plays, or like getting everyone at recess. We'd recreate scenes from Star Wars, even without a camera. We just kind of sit there and pretend we had a camera. And that continued and onward and on. I love to write from that. And I didn't get a lot of filmmaking opportunities. I grew up in rural Georgia and upstate New York. And I played a lot of music, and I could always write, and I loved to read. And I remember senior year calculus class. We finished early, and like you have to do a calc project. It can be anything artistic. And I, with all my friends, did a 15-minute Slumdog Millionaire parody. Very little calculus, had nothing to do with math. I don't remember where we got the cameras, but it was a 15-minute movie. It was long. I had scripted the whole thing out, flashbacks, and a Bollywood dance number at the end. And I didn't know what I was doing. We didn't have a film program. I got a torrented, don't tell anyone, torrented copy of Adobe Premiere. And I edited this movie on my own. We were trying to run 2 cameras, like sitcom style, because, we didn't know what we were doing. And I was just so proud of that. It was more than just like a little music video for friends. I've been making little shorts and stuff for projects, but this was like, it was a parody, but it was a long movie, and editing took forever. And I'm lucky I'm in the generation where YouTube could teach you how to edit. I could like how to do blank on Premiere, and someone could show me how to do it. And that really cemented, I've been writing a lot at that time, but that really cemented how fun it was to just actually get a bunch of people together, a huge community, every day on set's a blast, and actually put something together, not just sitting necessarily at your computer by yourself typing, which I do love doing, but there's something just too magical about being on a film set and making collaborative art. Clearly, I'm a chatty guy. I like to talk. I like to be around people, and I love to see what pings off when that happens. So that continued, and luckily, editing, I think, is the best. I think for any filmmaker, if I can be so bold to say, I think editing is the great place to start, because it's the finished product. Like you're seeing what the audience is seeing, and so you have to fix the mistakes that might have been made, or you realize what lines of a script weren't necessary when you thought they were. And so I edited all through college. We didn't have a film program, but I was an English major.
Right, so you were interested in an English major with a bit of a writing component?
Yeah, it was an English creative writing dual. And I remember my first year, I really wanted to adapt a Faulkner story, and a professor let me write a screenplay instead of a term paper. He's like, "No, I think you got something here. This will, show me you understand the story through the screenplay." I'd actually rather see that. I read enough term papers. So I had these mentors who did appreciate and let me do this. And then my senior year of college, I'd kind of finished most of my requirements. We didn't have a film program, but I found out we had cameras, and we had a really nice lighting set, like an LED lighting set. I think it was for the photography students. And I asked, like, "Hey, can I just have these for a semester?" And they said, "Sure." So I did what every poor aspiring filmmaker does, and I shot a black and white single location horror movie with 5 of my friends. It was my first little mini film festival run. It's not very good. I can easily say that, but there are 2 scenes that I am very proud of. There are 2 scenes in this whole movie that I'm just like, no, I can do this. There's something here I can build off of. And I think from there I was hooked. Now I could have gotten out before the horror movie, I think, and done anything else. But after doing that and putting it all in with friends, I couldn't let it go, and I've been very lucky to keep getting opportunities since then.
And your taste. I mean, I felt like mentioning that. First of all, the first Star Wars trilogy, special stuff. And then I think Slumdog Millionaire is actually a really special thing. So the fact that film resonated with you in at the high school level, I think is kind of impressive. And then to be inspired by horror too, like I think it's showing like a breadth of appreciation.
Thank you. I do. I think, again, we live in an era, a golden era of that, and a big part of that, I want to say first, I remember seeing Night of the Living Dead in a revival at the Fall Creek Cinema in Ithaca, New York, which is where I also saw Slumdog Millionaire. It's where I saw Little Miss Sunshine, which that movie changed my perception of movies. That's the first kind of indie movie I remember seeing and being like, I didn't know they made movies like this. I'd been seeing whatever was at Regal, with my friends every summer, or what I could get at Blockbuster. And it speaks also to you, Jeff. I mean, there is the idea of programming, keeping this art alive and curating it and sharing it and bringing people together. I was lucky, to your point of these tastes, to have people, whether it's my parents or friends or whoever programmed Fall Creek Cinemas back when I was in middle and high school. It's been lucky to see that, quality trumps genre by a long shot, and it shines through no matter what genre you're doing.
And I got to assume your enthusiasm and probably ability shone through to these adults, because I love the fact that not once, really not twice, but 3 times you did a film project. One was a screenplay, but you did a film project for a class where it didn't belong. But you were driven, and there was a nurturing adult who said, obviously they might have said no to a kid who they thought was just going to do it to get out of doing work, but they probably looked at you and said, well, I can tell Nicholas is going to work 10 times harder on this film than he would if he just did a little calc project or,
Yeah.
And then in college, you find out there's some equipment and you're just like, hey, in addition to my class load, I want to just make a movie.
Yeah. And to your point, again, because I can't stop shouting out these people, Mike Woods, Dr. Mike Woods, jazz professor at Hamilton, he heard about this. He became my advisor for this independent project. And he gave me his entire library of recorded music to use any of the songs I wanted. Full rights for my life. I have the full rights because, again, I think he's saw the passion and he saw this is what he did as a musician. And on the other side of this professor, Jane Springer, very incredible poet. If anyone likes poetry, find her book, especially murder ballads. She's incredible. And I remember her pulling me aside and saying, look, you got an A in this class, but if you actually want to be an artist, you're not working nearly half as hard. So if you actually want this, I'm here for you. Start taking some risks. You're going to get a fine grade, but that's not what this is about. If you actually want to do this, push yourself and don't worry about the results until after you've done it. And I think about those 2 people all the time, to your point, to be so lucky to have mentors and people who believed in me at that age.
And I got to say, it's also impressive that, to me, and I guess when she said that, is that what inspired you to make the horror short?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because it's so clear that, okay, so what I'm focusing in on here is that you made something and you kind of don't like it, but you recognize the spots that worked, and you recognize whether they were the edits or probably the camera work. I'm sure it was I know the first time, I can remember the first time directing something that I broke a rule and it worked, and you're like, oh my God, I just did what they tell you not to do and it works. But the fact that you focused on the positive in your work instead of the negative and said, oh, I don't like it, I'm done. I think that's exactly what someone needs to pursue this, because there's a lot more that doesn't work than does.
Oh, absolutely. And I actually, when I came to LA, I had a meeting with a writer, Pablo Fanjeves, who's a wonderful, wonderful human being. And a friend of a friend of a friend, kind of worked, just trying to meet people. And I told him this. I'm like, I have this film, this horror movie. It was a feature. It was 72 minutes, I think. And also I cut it down to 40, which tells you there's a problem. When you cut 30 minutes out of a 7-minute movie, you learn some stuff. But I remember saying, do you want to see it? He goes, did you finish it? I go, yeah. It's then no. All that matters is you finished it. I'm just proud you finished it. Send me your writing, what you've done since then, what you've kept going. But to your point, yeah, he's like, you finished it, you're learning from it, keep going. And I think you're totally right on that. That it's nice, not, I got a little bit of validation, just enough to more importantly say, this is a lifelong journey. Keep it up. Good work on this part. So.
And you said where you grew up. What college did you go to?
Went to Hamilton College.
Oh yeah, you mentioned Hamilton. Yeah.
It's a little liberal arts school way in upstate New York. So also, George Romero doing it all in rural Pennsylvania. I was like, all right, if he can pull it off in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, I can do it up here.
But was there a mentor? Did someone suggest you move back to LA after graduation, or what happened with that? Because that's a gutsy move, right?
I stutter stepped in a good way. I went to San Francisco. I was convinced I was going to be a novelist. I had just done this film. I was exhausted by it. And I loved writing. So I moved to San Francisco and, of course, go to be a novelist. I start working on a reading series. I'm helping do some submissions, and I'm helping host a reading series once a month. And I'm working for WikiHow, writing how-to articles. So for everybody out there, trust it or not, I was writing a lot of those, whatever that tells you.
But that's a good discipline. That's like discipline. Like you have to deliver writing like on a schedule, right?
I actually joked to myself that WikiHow was my Beatles in Hamburg. It was like I was writing 3 articles a day for almost a year, and everything from how to make curry to like my first article I ever wrote, how to kiss your boyfriend. Like it was like the voice tonally, I had to be all over the place. You had to have different voices for different articles. But again, it's, film couldn't go away. And at one point they asked, what do you want to do here? Is there any like big projects you want to do? I'm like, we don't have a filmmaking section. I like to actually do 20 how-to articles for filmmaking. And in doing that, I started writing more and started working on documentaries. I started working on music videos. I put together a YouTube channel and was doing a twice a week YouTube channel. And I just kept always circled back to filmmaking every single time. And I was worried. I didn't know anybody in LA. I didn't have any mentors here. I didn't, you hear the horror stories, how hard it is and how lonely and, how you got to be ready. And I kept circling back. So about a year and a half in San Francisco, I just packed up my car and I moved down. And my first roommates on Craigslist were set decorators. They got me a job set decorating for a KFC commercial. It's my first day on set, laying linoleum for the Colonel. And then the PA thing, and we all know the route, and you just keep getting gig after gig and keep working. But I stutter stepped and luckily felt good enough to meet mentors here and have people, at the end of a set being like, all right, you worked good for a month and a half. Do you want to share some writing? And get some of that little bits and notes and feedback. And then I became a full-time editor again, which was a really huge, I think, for me personally, the way I look at filmmaking is very edit based now. And that, gave me the leeway to write. And I think made me a better writer, I would think.
Was it just good fortune that the Craigslist roommate wanted ad was set deck or did you check out a bunch of apartments and you're like, oh, well, I want to live with the people who are actually, in the business a little bit? It wasn't as conscious. I checked out I think 8 apartments day one. I was living out of my car. And I got offered 2 of them, same roommates. And one of them was a really nice place in Studio City with 3 like young attorneys. And I think they wanted the creative in the house. I think they were like, oh, this is like, we're living in LA. We got to have like one creative balance out all the legal drama. And then I found this place and I just liked the guys and it helped because a couple of houses were, creative based. And he actually said when he offered me the place, and also he literally said like, I had a guy drop off yesterday. Like, can you join us literally in 2 days? If you move in, can you be on set with us in 2 days? And I immediately obviously said yes and snapped up on the opportunity. And did a lot of set deck. Which is a fun gig. Art department. And you were young and at that age where you could probably put in 16 to 18-hour days on set and not poop out and go home and turn it around with just a couple hours sleep, right? Like you were in that mold?
I was in that mold, and I actually, for a while, I still worked WikiHow in the mornings. So I wake up at 4 or 5 and I'd write my 3 articles and then I'd go on set. And then I worked, the 12, 14-hour days, go home, go to bed, get back on. And again, I don't want to do it again. I'm okay. I'm okay maybe to be past that part in my life. But I was lucky I was young and I did. I got to work with good people. And that's just such a huge part of it, is you work with people you like and you want to be around and keep you motivated and excited. There's a lot of good people out here. And I think most people who want to make something, there's a higher probability than not they're a pretty enjoyable person and a good person if they want to make art and they want to take that risk. And I've been lucky to be on the positive side of that ledger, I think.
Yeah, well, and you have you have a positive air about you, which Lord knows when you're the number of people working on a set. A commercial is actually, I've heard many people say it, like a commercial is like shooting a feature film, but sprinting. Like it is a sprint and it is tough. So having a sour apple on any set just really affects everything, right?
Oh yeah. I got my first movie, my first feature. I was PA it's my first feature ever, and I got promoted to key PA. And I asked why, and like, because you say yes and you smile, like you're on time and you smile. Like honestly, that's all it is. I'm like, I'm good because I don't know what I'm doing out here. Like, but no, you smile, you say yes when we ask you to do something. You're never late. And when I talk to kind of up young people who always, you get the call, hey, I'm moving to LA, I want to think about doing it. It's so funny. They always, someone asked me recently, like, how do you avoid cliches in your writing? I'm like, you just keep writing, you'll get over them. Be on time and smile. Like that's all that really matters is like, keep writing, be on time and smile. And you will be someone, like you said, that people want to shoot a movie with.
And actually the say yes is huge because there's such a difference between someone, especially someone who's working for you, but when someone asks you and your first response is, well, I actually think, they're like, okay, you just made my life more difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There'll be a point where people ask your opinion, and there'll be a point where they need an apple crate right now. And they need to put that, they need to lift that camera up 6 inches and you're going to help them do it. So yeah, I mean, literally in that same set, to embarrass myself, I was so green. Same set I got promoted. A performer was like, hey, I need a full apple. And in the walkie-talkie, I go, red or green. And I got pilloried for that, obviously. But that wasn't.
I'm sure they enjoyed it, though.
Oh, yeah. That was a huge hit. That joke got passed around. But I think it goes to show, like you said, it wasn't coming in with any great institutional knowledge. It was like, yeah, yes. Red or green was my version of yes. What kind of apple do you want? It's the wrong apple. It wasn't an apple at all, but I think it made a difference. And I hope, like you said, I hope it.
Yeah. Well, and you didn't say, yeah, I have 4 other things to do first. I'll get to you when I can. Like, no, you gotta be kicking ass and taking names.
Yeah.
And the whole time, and you're right, obviously WikiHow, the WikiHow mornings was to pay rent and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, but God, talk about discipline and sticking to schedules and things.
It helped. It helped a lot. And, to maybe close it full circle, when I became an editor, I edited, was a YouTube channel. We had 3 videos a week. So I was writing, that was my film school, which I was very lucky. Like I shot, edited, color corrected, posted to YouTube. We did 3 videos a week. There were only 2 cinematographers. We just did it all in-house. And that was, again, moving. But I kind of kept the habit, and I wrote every morning before work. 'Cause writing and filmmaking, I didn't want to be an editor full-time. And one of my producers eventually sold a show to Netflix and had read one of my scripts that I wrote in the morning before work, and she knew about it. And she got me my first writer's assistant job, which got me my first freelance script. Got me my second, which got me in the guild, which got me staffed. So, it's been lucky that those early years, that kind of the lean years, the habits and the discipline, they pay off. They got lucky. Yeah.
Right. So staffed as a writer, but then also editing, which is a nice combo.
Yeah.
And I was going to say also with the WikiHow videos, unlike somebody who's making a bunch of videos for their own YouTube channel, which might end up with very few. I mean, you were making stuff. And actually, I'm going to compare the WikiHow thing again to like the school projects, which is like they didn't make videos at it. Like you were just supposed to be writing stuff. They asked you, what do you want to do? And you said, oh, I want to actually do filmmaking stuff. Like you redirected it to your interest in a positive way. So yeah, that is a very impressive film school. And the fact that you were cranking out stuff, but you also knew it was going to be seen because it had WikiHow behind it.
Yeah, and we got comments and you get feedback very quickly, to your point, which is really good. It's great for it. And I think to your other point too, I'd add too, it's something, I think everybody, me included, you want to do your own stuff. Like you want to get it. And I think in some ways there are 2 different skills that you have to learn to merge eventually, which is how do I get what's in my head out there into the world? How do I share this? And then technically, how do I achieve a decent looking film? How do I do the technical skills of it? And in many ways, when you're like, okay, like I'm taking my idea out of it. I'm not going to have to worry about the part that is my voice and my thoughts and what I want to say. I'll do that in the morning when I write. and you just have to get really good at telling someone else's story or telling someone else's narrative, or just putting the reps in without having, I think, the attachment of like, this is mine, it's me, that kind of ego in it that is important to say, I want to share something. But when you can work on something without the ego bit attached to it, I do think, for me personally, it was a huge leaps and bounds, technical ability that then becomes second nature. And then when you want to have your voice, you've got the toolkit already that you can work. And so making things for WikiHow, something I never would have thought maybe I would say artistically fulfilling, ended up being, kind of the best training regimen I could have lucked into or asked for.
And I mean, I was almost gonna, if you hadn't used it, I would have thrown out the word ego and said that not having no ego, but understanding where and when to let one's ego play a part is huge. I do have here, before we started recording, I was like, I won't talk about myself much, but one of the few times I fucked up on set was someone was complimenting me, and I said, well, I'm good at this because I don't have an ego. And they looked at me like, wow, that was egotistical. But the key to it, even when it is your own script, right? When you're directing your own script, like When You Became Us or many of the other things you probably did, if you remove your ego so that you can say, oh, I like that the way that actor changed that line. I like this suggestion. I like them doing something that wasn't my idea. It's huge. It's the only way that something comes out. The sum of the parts is better more than the whole.
Yeah, absolutely. And then people want to work with you. People want to be around you. And yeah, I mean, again, back to I think we'll probably circle this the whole time. That's the joy of collaborative art, and that's the joy of filmmaking, I think, is when you do subsume that ego, and you let it just, it's always there. I think that's the other thing. It's like, there's no, like you said, there's no getting rid of it. There's no having no ego. And then that's almost egotistical. But when you create space for others and let that shine. And again, back to When You Became Us, I think that's a big part of it. I never wanted, I think the hive mind idea to be necessarily all bad. That's necessarily the worst thing that can happen. I think in many ways, we already act as hive minds. In very many beneficial ways, we act in some ways as hive minds, and push, let our individuals, tamper our individualism for the good of a collective and the good of a whole. That's always very exciting. And I hope it carries. I hope I hold on to it. So
you're tempting me to throw out a socialism joke, but I'll hold back. but I certainly believe in it. And I was going to ask, were there film projects, personal projects before When You Became Us, while you were, getting on in staff, writers' rooms and working as an editor? Because also, I also want to, the fact that you're in writers' rooms, that's the rare situation when writing becomes collaborative, right? When you get to be around people. But boy, the editing is I was going to mention that you like the collaboration, and then you're also quite good at the solo part. Yeah,
I think the joy was when the solo part was finally good enough that I felt like I could bring something to the collaboration, and have, be fluent in a way. So much of it is conversation, and I do think film is a language, and when you can get fluent into it, kind of on your own, practicing, and then bring that, the dialogue just gets that much better. I did you can probably see the connection. I did a YouTube series where I filmed, it's called the Random Ass News Network. The idea was they're all Colbert style parodies, but it's like, so there's going to be this, hacker character. There was this like druggy doctor. There was this conservative blowhard. There was this kind of NPR skewing liberal. And so I played most of the characters. And the idea was we do real news like Colbert would, the Colbert Report used to be. Do real news, but through these lenses of these characters and these voices, and the dream being, eventually there was this entire, news network of fictional characters that also interacted and commented on each other's stories and had backroom politics. And so I built different sets for all of them. I designed different like chyrons for all of them, and different graphics and different costumes for every character, and it kind of built that out. And the fun of it was that was solo for a while. And then I had friends be like, oh, can I play an anchor? Like, I got a character idea. And then, all right, what story do we want to cover? Like, how do we want to cover it? Who do you want to be? And that was really my, like, I can shoot with my iPhone and, the clamp lights I have around back. And that helped a ton. And then, this YouTube channel I worked on, again, asking for stuff. I remember we did a lot of, we do parody videos here and there, little things, joke videos. And eventually I said, can we do an office style, like behind the scenes sketch show? And me and the producer who actually ended up selling that Netflix show ended up co-writing it together and shooting that just literally in our off time, like when we weren't busy. I think a lot of those were really good prep for when you became us. And I devoted a lot of time to writing, but I got these nice little 3 to 5 to 6 minute, like, kind of hits of creative filmmaking, and to kind of keep me going and kind of build the skills up before kind of sinking it all into when you became us.
Was the behind the scenes office type idea, was it actually behind the scenes of Random Ass News Network, or was it behind the scenes of a different place?
Different place, yeah. This was for the place I was editing. What's Up, Mom?
I was getting all meta on you and going, whoa, you did a show behind the scenes of your Random Ass News Network.
Well, so I will say this. So the dream, and there's a pitch deck somewhere, if that ever happens, would be to do like a John Oliver show, an hour, and a half hour of it is news. 3 or 4 of these anchors covering John Oliver style kind of deep dives in the day, but through this Colbert style satirical bent for all of them. And then in between those segments, a 20-minute sitcom of behind the scenes of the news network. So of the other anchors at the coffee room, internal politics. So this kind of meta, I kind of did want to do this, what was the Sorkin show? Newsroom. Yeah, a newsroom style comedy where you do actual topical bits that are, filmed that week and then stretch it out. Who knows? It was one of those young maybe too losing my mind ambitions. But in the back of my mind, it's always
some of those ambitions deserve the light of day, right? And I gotta admit, you are way too young for this. But I don't know if you ever heard of SCTV.
I've seen some sketches, right? It was the Canadian, right?
It was the Second City Troupe up in Toronto. Yeah, there was John Candy and Rick Moranis and, Eugene Levy, who ended up giving us Schitt's Creek and stuff. But that was actually a 1-hour sketch comedy show that was both the shows that were on their fake TV network, SCTV, and behind the scenes stuff of that network.
Okay.
So but it was pure comedy. Whereas what you're talking about, I love what you're talking about. By the way, you also seem to have a very firm sense of, I call this a compliment, social justice. I know that there's some people in our culture that use the term social justice in a bad way. I don't understand how justice can be a bad word.
Yeah, it's that co-opting. Yeah, social justice warrior fighting for social justice. That sounds pretty great. Actually, that's pretty good. It's a pretty good profession. But I do.
You care about the news and stuff too. Like
I do, and I mean the reason Colbert Report was such a huge influence, and The Daily Show. I mean, the first real, after George Lucas, like Jon Stewart was my idol, and I watched The Daily Show. I grew up in Georgia, very, 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 very red state, tiny little blue household, and Jon Stewart was like the one voice I could. Like, oh, I get it. He gets me. I get him. Other people believe in this worldview. Other people don't want to invade Iraq, et cetera, et cetera. But the thing about Colbert that I thought was so brilliant is it's the logical endpoint of this infotainment news and the fact that the news has become entertainment, which is a bad thing because it's masquerading not as entertainment. And Colbert was like, no, I'm going to take this to the endpoint of what entertainment of the news is, and thus totally exposing this, I think, the slickness that has pervaded the news while still actually giving facts and news, and doing it at a level that I think perfectly was watchable, because that is, the reason the news is becoming entertainment is because you need eyeballs to get ad revenue to keep the news going. It's no one's fault. Well, Rupert Murdoch's fault, but other than Rupert Murdoch, it's no fault. And so I was interested in that because I think beyond even any one piece of news, I think we're going on a whole new direction of the podcast. So sorry for that.
No, but it's actually, and you're reminding me of a very important time because, I had been a Daily Show fan, even in the Kilborn era. But when Colbert Report was born out of it, it kind of was even like, because Daily Show is, almost like, I think we all know it was just an extension of the SNL news in a way. Like it was Weekend Update, but 4 nights a week. Yeah. But then, what Colbert did was even more special. And I mean, I remember I ended up loving Colbert Report more than Daily Show because of what you're talking about, because he was able to even dive in better. I mean, that Better Know a District stuff where you interview a congressperson.
Yep.
Amazing.
That's amazing. And got a great musical guest, tip of the hat, wag of the finger. And then when he started doing actual rallies, like they actually started doing get out the vote rallies. And like he started a super PAC to show how stupid it was that these places can get all this money and do anything they want with it. Like he was taking the news and Citizens United ruling, and he was like using comedy to really eviscerate just how awful and corrupt this not only news but politics in general had become. And he was doing it in a way that I don't know if anyone's done since. I mean, satire has been around forever, and I don't think satire will ever die as long as there's corruption and hypocrisy. But man, it just blew me. It still blows me away that he was able to pull that off at such a high level. And just how
a level of brilliance, unbelievable brilliance. I'm proud to say I was at the rally to restore sanity in DC.
Oh, were you? Oh, I'm jealous. There. I remember watching that. I think live. I think they had a live.
Yeah. You were probably too young, I think, probably.
I couldn't. I don't think my parents were going to buy me a bus ticket to. It was DC, right?
It was in DC. It was in the mall. It was like my first wife and I flew out for that. I still have a friend or two who I met at that.
Oh, that's amazing.
But yeah, that was we thought it was going to make the world better, but turns out, boy, I still believe the world's always getting better, but we've had our little setbacks since then. It was very shocking that we had our first satirical version of a president for the first time. Someone just pretending to be president, just like Colbert pretended to be what he was. Yeah. But wonderful. So yeah, you've got lots of great influences too.
Thank you. Yeah. I will say I just, again, one of the big lucky things, I think, to your point of the world being better. It's easy sometimes for me personally to be like, well, do we really need the internet? Do we need social media doing this? But I do think it has exposed and democratized genre in such a cool way. I mean, even just the Criterion Network streaming, like, and how accessible these films are, that, Janus Film used to be the hardest thing in the world to find. You had to hope you had a buddy who had a DVD, or you had a very good, like, guy at your local rental place. And, talking again, Fall Creek Cinemas, like, I was lucky. I had one independent theater with a really thoughtful programmer. But even since then, I mean,
the art house video store, like those rare video stores that were, 50+% art house vintage VHS or I guess, but yeah, then when DVD came along, all of a sudden I bet a lot of the classics didn't get put on there.
Yeah. And didn't get restored. Yeah. Didn't get brought over. Weren't worth the money to transfer it. And, now we're lucky. We have people who are dedicated to it. I love the Arrow. I'm a big American Cinematheque fan. And, one of my favorite things is, how proud and rightfully they are. When, like, this print was languishing in the Paramount warehouse. Like, no one had touched it. And we, Martin Scorsese does a ton of this, but like someone had to save this film because this art would have been lost forever if we didn't digitize it and we didn't fix this print up and bring it back. And so it's a better time than ever for good influences, and there's no shortage of it. So
it is, and we are lucky because this is, I think, the digital era finally represents the point where things that are saved, right? Because it used to be they'd restore a print to a new print.
Yeah.
And then that one could languish, right? Like finally digital is like the last step where, like, as long as the format doesn't die, but like whatever, when I was in college, like, we shot stuff on tape formats that just don't exist today. Like, like I can't walk into somewhere and say, hey, can you convert this college project to MP4? And they're like, what are you talking about? No one's had one of those cameras for for 20, 30 years.
Yeah, some esoteric proprietary tape design or whatever. Or remember those mini discs? There was that like the mini DVD.
The mini disc, the audio mini disc.
The audio mini disc for a while.
That was supposed to be the best thing ever.
I know, right? And straight down the tubes.
It was the new 8-track. Yeah, it was.
To your point, I was digging through my old laptop. I was getting ready to, bring it to one of those electronic dump farms, and all of the videos I made in college, like just the little shorts and just stuff I made. We had a video art class. We didn't have a film class. We had video art. So me painting nude on a wall at a gallery video on loop kind of thing. It was just that. But I have them. Like I had digitized copies, and I was, to your point, like I never had to think about it. They're pretty low res, and some of them are pretty nasty audio. But I am lucky that I have every one of those projects still, and I can still keep them around. And I think that's my one worry, if I can get on a mini union soapbox, is we do now have this thing where stuff made for streamers has the chance of being taken down, and no one's making DVDs of shows anymore. People are barely making DVDs of film. And I do have a small worry that, there are these projects that streamers might take down and are going to be gone forever. And I don't know what we do to keep that alive, and if they keep the prints as well. I do have a friend who said from here on out, every contract he signs, he's going to demand 10 Blu-rays of whatever he makes. So even if something gets taken off of streaming, he will always have a copy that he can watch what he made. And I am taking him up.
You better rip those Blu-rays like right away with one of them. Oh, rip it open and rip it to your computer, because the day will come that there's not a functioning. Although I still have a friend who has a functioning Laserdisc player.
Hey, all right, they're back. They all come back. I got a record collection, so who knows anymore.
Records, but yeah, it's but so back to, I think I was at so you did the Random Ass News Network and some other stuff, and then was when you became us, like your first host college like film.
Yes, I'd say it was my first openly narrative. Yeah, like kind of singular voice,
like sitting down writing a screenplay. You said, you had the brilliant ambition of like, I'm going to write something for Black Mirror. Like I'm just going to do it.
And that evolved into the first draft of the feature. And that feature was actually what got me my first writer's assistant job. The producer, and it was a TV show, but she's like, look, it shows you know what you're doing. You know how to use Final Draft. And so I had always loved the feature. I still love the feature. And then writer's assistant. And I was, very lucky to work pretty consistently in writer's rooms for a year or two. And about 2 years after that, I remember just like, I just still can't get these characters out of my head. I still can't get rid of this concept. I love the feature, but I need to be honest with myself. But, I don't have the connections to raise enough money to shoot a feature. I just don't. And I don't have the clout necessarily to go get them. But I've always, I love the concept and I love the idea. And I always kind of did think there's got to be a stretch in here. And so, of course, I took a 15-page excerpt of it and immediately realized it didn't work as a short. I had to start from scratch. But I could keep the two main characters. And they felt very, in the world and maybe how she works, switching from body to body. That was enough. And COVID was ending, and I had been lucky enough to write. I was getting out of a relationship. And I remember, just thinking like, God, I've been writing and I love writing, but I miss set so much. And I got to make my own opportunity to be on set right now. Especially since I'm lucky enough to have a job in a writer's room that I'm not going to be, giving up anytime soon. So I broke the feature open and kind of went with it. It was my first in a very long time. Just bring the ego back. This is just my idea. This isn't for someone else. This isn't to be sold. This isn't necessarily even to be popular, even though you always want that. This is, I gotta see this. And I think I have to see this. And I was very lucky. My friend Bennett Corden, who was the producer on When You Became Us, he really believed in it. And he was in a similar place of really wanting to make something, especially coming out of the pandemic. And we just, I think at one point we're just like, all right, don't look down, don't look back. We're going to barrel into this and we're going to get something made. I was very lucky. Two of my best friends in the world contributed some money right when I really needed it. and they said the same thing. They're just like, we want to be a part of it. We want to help make something. I think everybody maybe coming out of the pandemic, a lot of people were like, what now? What? And can I make something of this? Can I add to the world? I've been just by myself in a room for so long. And I think we all kind of took that and ran with it. And yeah, I had a lot of fun, I will say. I mean, it's a lot of fun. Not always on the moment, it's a lot of fun, but always in hindsight, it's a lot of fun.
It is. And actually it's especially after having such a long process of writing a feature and then pulling something out and then wisely just saying, no, I'm going to write a fresh short. And it's about 11 minutes. So,
yeah.
So a smart amount of time. And my God, you you have 3-act structure in an 11-minute short, which, I mean, it's not uncommon. Like the block that you talked about, I think every film in that block actually had great 3-act structure. But sometimes a short's just, a simple idea that, it's one and done. So you tell a very full story. And yeah, it just must have been so rewarding to see it getting shot. And I guess now we can jump. So was it at the end of COVID so that enough people were still waiting for the world to ramp up again that you could, because I'm sure we talked about it at your Q&A at the theater that, the number of locations is ambitious. The number of people on screen is ambitious.
Yeah.
It's an ambitious film for an 11-minute short, for sure.
Yeah, and it was. And that was the big thing I told Bennett, the producer. I was like, just so you know, like, I think this concept only works if we swing for the fence on sets and people. And I think, part of that was there was a lot of hunger. So Alex Jones, our cinematographer, he was the only other videographer at the editing job I told you about. I told you 2 of us made three things a week. So he and I just had language together. We knew each other on set, and also because we were making 3 things a week and editing them, we knew how to be quick together. We knew how to prep for something. We knew very well how to work on set together. We knew how to backstop each other without having to talk. And he came on as, a third partner, and just said, like, look, I know it's going to be ambitious, but like, I remember he said, I want to forego some money because I want to get more crew to help me. Like, and so he pulled in friends to help him on our second AC, Kenny McMillan, is phenomenal. And then locations wise, I really just like, okay, I think in many ways, quantity is going to be the most important thing here. Obviously you want quality to matter, but I'm like, I think we can frame quality in. So we opened up a map of LA and I called in every favor I had. Speaking of COVID, my liquor store down the street from my apartment, probably the only human being I saw other than like Zoom parents. I'm like, hey, like, can I shoot here? And like, he's like, yeah, we open at 10, get here at 6, be out by 10. And so we used him, and then like, okay, we have this liquor store. We can use the parking lot. We can be there in the morning. Can we use the alley behind it as an alleyway? Okay, can we like hop across the street and knock on some doors and ask to use someone's driveway for a front lawn? And so we just really started chaining those locations together. So, we pulled out a map and we're like, okay. And then we just drove in circles around. So we got that. Santa Monica Brew Works, which everybody listening, they're the best brewery in Los Angeles. Incredible food, incredible people. A friend of mine called them. He knew the owner, and they're like, park here. You can use our bathroom. We need a bathroom set. We're right next to the metro. So, okay. So we have Santa Monica Brew Works. We have a metro stop right there. Right behind there's a beautiful residential street. Can we use 3 locations in 1 location there? And so we chained all these places together. And then Alex and I, knowing fully well this was going to be a wild shoot, we went with just a cheap little DSLR, and we pre-shot it with me playing all the roles. And marking where the sun was in every single position, diagramming everything out, knowing where our light was going to be, planning it for both, overcast and full sun, knowing our shade, tons of mistakes, stuff we couldn't go back to reshoot, but we knew them. We made the mistakes in advance. And he and I just drove around one weekend in the car and just pre-shot every place we could. Just so we knew as much as we could going in. Because again, we didn't have the benefit of being able to stop and reblock a scene, a lot. We had maybe one of those a day where we were allowed to do that. And so that kind of alleviated my worry, and we edited it together and we made our changes ahead of time so we could show up on set really, really well prepared. And it also gave us flexibility to improvise because, like we had a backstop. We weren't showing up saying, okay, where should I go? Where should I do this? Like, nope, we're gonna set it up and then we can improvise. And then for the actors, like you said, I think we had 13 speaking roles, I think, maybe 14 speaking roles. So I know we had 16 sets, 13 locations, and I think 13 speaking roles. And for that, I was really lucky. I rehearsed the whole thing with the two leads. So probably should back up for anyone listening. It's a hive mind, and one character doesn't have this hive mind, and the other character is cycling through different bodies, and so different actors are playing her throughout the whole thing. And I actually just did it as a play. I had the two lead actors do it as a play and just act out the entire thing as if it was just two of them, two normal people having a fight over and over again. And I excerpted every one of my favorite line readings from her. And I gave them all to the actor doing that line reading. And I gave them my favorite full end of the play. So it's like, this is the performance. This is the consistency that we need. Like, this is where your value is in relation to the entire thing, which obviously on set we massaged, but I think it allowed everyone to walk in on set, no matter the level of experience as an actor, and be pretty close to what we needed for a consistent performance throughout the whole thing. And again, time was of the essence. So it just, every one of those little things, and how talented Bennett was, my producer, how talented Alex was, how well prepared we were, I think, with costumes and with sets, to kind of keep color continuity going. I hate to say it, but it was that kind of magic that sometimes you're like, will this ever happen again? Will I ever get a crew this locked in and this talented to be able to pull off something like that in only 3 days of shooting? I don't know. I hope so, but I am very fortunate it even happened once.
I mean, you may never have to shoot something in 3 days. Like the version of it might have helped. But so actually, so many questions based on what you just said. But so clearly, even though it looks fantastic, it sounds like with your preparation, you went with natural light so you could move quickly.
Yeah, it was a great lighting team. I got our gaffer was fantastic. But I mean, a lot of the outdoor stuff is us, me holding a screen maybe, or holding a bounce board.
Like a bounce board, yeah. So
yeah, there's a scene in the back alley, and that one we shot at a bookstore, which was my favorite bookstore. I used to lead a book club there, and I asked the guy, "Hey, can I shoot here on an off day?" And he said, "Yeah, well, I'll actually just close it for you Saturday morning." And then we found the alley behind it, and we can shoot there. So while we were shooting the bookstore, they put up a silk. But other than that, so they had a silk for that alley scene. And again, that was another big point, is like, how many places can we go where we can drop the truck one place, shoot in one thing, be setting up the next set while we're there. But yeah, a lot of natural lighting. And then one whole day was at a house. We rented a house for one day. It was the only place we rented. And we actually looked at about 50 houses because we needed 2 bedrooms that had different enough architecture we could pretend they were 2 different houses. And that was the only place where we actually had time to set up lights. We shot the exterior of the house in the morning. But yeah, almost everything else was pretty run and gun. But again, Alex is so talented. He and I are used to run and gun from the YouTube days. We're used to making it look good. We did Pampers and Google commercials. So there was a level of visual quality that we had to hit for them, and we had to do it fast. Use a nice camera nowadays. You throw an Alexa on with a pair of sticks, it's going to look pretty good. But yeah, I'm very happy with how it looked, and we went a little oversaturated on the color grade just to kind of make it pop just a little bit and make it just a little past realism, which I think we knew ahead of time. We knew what grade we wanted. We knew we wanted a naturalistic lighting feel. And luckily it was one of those things where, we didn't get thrown enough curveballs that our preparation, paid off and let us get something that I'm also very proud of the look. I think Alex just did just a stellar job.
It does. It looks fantastic. It looks fantastic. And then the other comment based on what you'd said previously is, so all the actors sharing a hive mind with your lead character, they got to hear her performance.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, because there's even, I might be wrong, but there's even a moment where we hear her voice and the other person's voice sort of layered, and they match perfectly. And I got to admit, like, the viewing this morning, I was like, holy fuck, that's good. Because, like, the fact that they said, like, you could tell it was her speaking through them with the slight overlay, I thought it was just so cool and so unique.
Thank you. Yeah, I was very proud of that too. And both of them, Kyla she's the lead, it was incredible. And she couldn't even make the set that day. So that was pure, and that we didn't ADR that. So it was her being able to like communicate it through and the actress being able to pull it off. And I want to say that day, unfortunately, she got like a car accident or something. She was very late to set. Very late. I mean, we had to push her scene like an hour, on a very tight day. And she just walked up and she had internalized her cadence and she just nailed it on like, I think we only got 2 takes with her before the sun was set. Because that was, again, natural lighting. If you're doing a sunset scene, not a lot of wiggle room. you're shooting it.
Did you no, because you said there was shade and stuff, but yeah, over the course of the 3 days, you had to because the story itself, there is a sense of, the passage of time during that day, during their argument.
Yeah.
Right. And we, I don't think it's a spoiler if I mention that, like, we end up like at the top of a parking structure, and that definitely feels like later than the morning.
Yeah. That was the hope. We shot that sunset. Yeah. And that was a day, the restaurant before that, we're like, well, we can control the lighting. So let's get in there and shoot. We shot that scene. We broke that scene and then ran upstairs, shot during sunset, ran back down. So we kind of planned, like, we're just going to, like, the minute the light's right up there, we had our first AC just checking in constantly. Yeah, because we really wanted that. We really wanted to feel like a day. Again, a talented cinematographer with talented gaffer. It just, we communicated it early and often. We had viewings together. All the department heads came together. We had a lot of style. We had, I love shot deck. So we used a lot of shot deck to build out a mood board and a lighting board as we went down. And they were able to, I think so. Again, I'm sure you felt this. There are times you're like, what did I even do? I mean, this crew is just like, they didn't show up and they do it. And, all
you did was come up with the idea and write it and direct it and, and sample all the parts early. And so, yeah, I mean, you did. I'm sure everyone else, but again, you're being gracious and you're aware of how important all those other people are. Mm-hmm. But I'm sure every one of those people would say, we've got nothing without Nicholas. I mean,
I like to think I brought them together and then let them go play. And, it was fun. Again, another plug. Santa Monica Brew Works, to the point of the community, they hosted our wrap party, donated a bunch of beer, just let us have fun. And I told them about TVHi, and they are absolutely going to be playing it on the screen when it's out and ready to go. They're so excited. They're like, we're going to bring people in. Like, this was shot here. Like, we want people to know. So again, yeah, it's just a very, when you got a brewery helping you out, it makes set a very playful attitude, a very playful place. But yeah,
I got to write that down. I must admit, I haven't. I'm a little old, a little uncool now, so I haven't. I used to live not too far from Santa Monica and loved the area, but I haven't been there for about 10, 15 years, so I don't know Santa Monica Brew Works.
Yeah,
but it sounds like I got to check it out.
We're the shot. We're the spot. And they even host
a mixer there. You never know.
I think you should. I'll be there, and we'll introduce you to Jack. Jack will take care of everybody. He also hosts a WGA mixer, a West Side Writers mixer, every month. They love creatives, and I think they love being a part of the creative community in LA, and love doing their part for it. Much like you. And so, match made in heaven. I'm just gonna say that.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah. Well, they're not wrong if they think that creatives enjoy beer.
No, not a too high of a leap. I don't know if you need a writer for that.
I'm sure it's nothing beats the quality. Yeah. All right, so you finish it, and then I believe you had like a kick-ass festival run.
We did. It wasn't too bad. I kind of eventually peeled out a little bit on the festival thing. I struggled. I mean, I funded this whole thing basically myself. I saved up a lot of money. I took out a lot of loans. And it was a blast. And again, I was lucky I got staffed and kind of moved on. But I'm not going to lie. I think Sherman Oaks was a blast. It was like all I could ask for. The community was amazing. I still talk to people. My friend Christian, who came to that screening, I DP'd a short for her 2 months later. She had written a 5-minute thing. And then Alex, who's at that festival, I'm editing, Alex Bucas. He's an incredible filmmaker. He's putting a short together that I'm helping work on right now. It's on social media, so I don't think he'll mind me saying that. And it was one of those things where Sherman Oaks was a blast, and I had so much fun, and we got on a couple festivals, and I kind of was like, time to get back to work. Time to get a feature made. It's this has been a blast, but it's spawned the rest of the excitement, and luckily turned into a lot of other opportunities for us, which has been great.
I feel, by the way, I shouldn't say this, but it was wonderful having you at Sherman Oaks. And we've moved to a fancy theater now.
I've heard.
Now we're so because I'm sure. Oh man, when you became us on a 75-foot DCP screen would just be bananas. Beautiful.
Yeah, I am pretty excited about that as well. I thought the projector was great. I thought it looked really great. But
they'd upgraded it. We used to be at a cute playhouse in Sherman Oaks. Now, like all the other damn festivals, Sherman Oaks Film Festival has had to leave the area of Sherman Oaks because we don't have a state-of-the-art theater in Sherman Oaks.
Yeah.
And for year 8, we knew we had to make the move. But
yeah, well, I mean, congrats though. That's a cool move too. That's going to be exciting. I can't wait. to see it. And my name won't be in any of the submissions, but I'm going to be rooting for a couple people that I'm going to be seeing there. So I'll recuse myself from that. But I can't speak highly enough about it. It was just the best experience of the whole run. So
thank you. And what also is kind of rad is that our new home, Look Cinemas in Glendale, because it's a Cineplex instead of a Playhouse. The Playhouse was like, you've got to rent our space for a 6-hour block.
Right.
This movie theater, they just love that, people don't go to the movies that much anymore.
Yeah.
So they love that we bring people in to order food and drink. So we actually get to start at 8 p.m. during weeknights there.
Nice.
So no, 6 p.m. show that no one can get to. No afternoon. Yeah. No one get like so every screening's like a good screening, which I'm needless.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Together while I'm talking to you, because I'm like, oh man, no more of this, like, because I can't help it. I personalize everything. And when we have a 6 p.m. screening on a Thursday and like 8 people are there, I'm like, I understand traffic and parking sucks, but these films are too fucking good to have 8 people in the theater. So
yeah, and exactly. And that's you put together great blocks and you get great films. And I remember the first, that first mixer. I mean, good people. There's really good people. And I still meet for coffee all these filmmakers. I still talk to them. We're still like sending each other scripts. And it's been really cool.
I know. I've joked about this before. I can't figure it out. Everyone's nice. I don't know why everyone's so nice now.
Oh, I know what it is.
I was on the festival circuit in the 90s. Everyone was an asshole because it was the era of Clerks and Brothers McMullen and stuff. So everyone at the festivals was like, I'm going to be rich. I'm going to get tomorrow. Harvey Weinstein's going to ask me out to lunch and make me a multimillionaire with a 7-picture deal. And so everyone's a jerk. But now everyone at the festival, on the festival circuit's like, well, not everyone, but it's been a long time since I've had to deal with an asshole.
Yeah. Well, I know what it is. And it starts from the top. It starts from you. You set the tone from the top, and you bring in good people, and you bring in good, thoughtful, community-driven, incredible films. So, I don't see a mystery there, but you're welcome to think it. I think you do a very good job of that.
But I mean, we select the films. A jury selects the films, and an asshole can make a good film, right? Sure. But it just has been a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll keep that streak going.
Or people are nice to me at the festival, and they're actually assholes. Real life, but they're nice to the programmer while they're at the theater. I don't know. Maybe I don't know.
No, I can say I think it's Chris Harvey. He did that date movie, the meta date movie where the guy's filming his date. It was last year. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's a first date, and he realizes he brought a camera crew there. It's very funny.
Chris Hall, that was the perfect date.
Chris Hall, yes.
The perfect
what a date. And so I can tell you, like, I ran into him not that long ago on a picket line, and still a great guy. You're nowhere just around. And, you know, I think he had said the same thing about everybody he met there. But
he's super nice. In fact, The Perfect First Date is also on TVHi.
Hey, all right. Good. That's a good watch. That's a real good watch.
My God, it's so funny.
That's so funny.
Like yours, these things that are well written get better every time, I gotta say.
Okay. So, all
right, well, besides the feature, and you said, are there other things afoot?
Yeah, there. So two. Well, I mean, God, how much time? Look, I'd be remiss if I didn't. I'm on strike with the WGA. It's been an incredible summer. It's been a hard summer, but I think overall, to your point about this, there's not a lot of assholes out there. And maybe the assholes just don't go picket and they don't hang out, but just the ability to have this creative community, and, you know, writers can be kind of solitary people and come together and talk, and just be around has been there. So I almost, you know, I don't want to call the strike a project, but I've been very fortunate and I've been very intentional. And I think this is a very pivotal moment in labor relations in Hollywood. It's a very pivotal moment going forward with how we nurture a creative community that's sustainable. I think this labor movement has gone beyond just the writers and actors for a reason. I think everybody's felt this crush from capital. And I think I really have been an effort to devote a lot of time to that. So if you're listening and this is still going on, I'll meet you at Amazon Culver Cities on the picket line every morning. And so that's been incredible. And I think I'm optimistic and I'm heartened. And I think this is work that needs to go forward. I think the unions have been maybe a little too separate up until this point, but I think that's been broken, but it's going to take work to continue that. And again, things like Your Mixer and Sherman Oaks are a huge part of that. We need to be bringing filmmakers together in person just to talk and just to hang out. Because then when crisis hits and something big happens, we know each other and we have each other's backs. And I think that has been, I have to remind myself that this isn't just a rest period. This is something we're all building for, I think, a brighter creative future.
For sure. And for the next, I mean, you're at that key age, the next 20 years, whatever contract comes out of this is going to affect you personally. I was going to ask, was it a huge shot in the arm when SAG-AFTRA joined in?
Oh, unbelievable. I mean, you could feel it. I mean, it was leaden legs. I mean, just people really brave face, and we're going to still be out there, but the reinforcements matter. And I remember the day of Fran Drescher's big fiery speech. We all actually huddled in the shade and watched it on someone's iPhone. And you just felt we walked 3 times as fast for the rest of the day. And more people honked and more cars came by. And then they joined the lines and just had this infectious energy. And it's not just them, too. I mean, I went to that UPS rally with the Teamsters, and that was incredible. And nurses have been coming out, and teachers have been coming out, and taxi drivers have been coming out. It's been everybody. That said, the actors are very, very good at PR. They're very, very pretty people. And they have brought a groundswell of love and attention that I don't know if we were quite capable of pulling off on our own.
Yeah, it's very funny. I'm friend Lee through the film festival, Sherman Oaks Film Festival, the guy who played Skinny Pete on Breaking Bad was in a film. So we're Facebook friends now. And picketing in front of, I think they were picketing in front of Sony. There was a Breaking Bad reunion. It was all like 8 or 9 actors who were all on Breaking Bad were on the picket line together, and they stopped and had a little reunion and took photos and stuff. And like, just the attention that draws.
Yes.
Lord knows the public cares more about that.
They do. And they've been incredible at that. And yeah, look, I'm back east to visit family, and people know more about the writer's strike than I had any conception of it, and very positive. And again, I think it speaks, you know, even going back to the discussion about the news and maybe, you know, the socialist joke or not, that capital and management have destroyed a lot of middle class prospects through a lot of greed and a lot of hoarding of wealth. And I think this has been resonant, and the actors have been so vocal and that the actors have connected with so many people because they're good at it. They have a lot of energy and people like them, but also because people don't see this anymore as a bunch of rich, snooty actors and writers. It's like, no, we're all of these companies. Amazon is hurting a lot of people and fighting labor in many ways. And they have a capacity to make a great change for good if we can nudge them, I'll say gently, to do so. So it's been very fun to see. I will say the other thing is it's been a fun, creative and artistic reset in so many ways. You know, it's picketing every day is you're just talking shop with a bunch of writers and actors all day and swapping pages and swapping ideas. And I finally wrote a pilot that I've dreamed of for years. Just one of these things that I've loved the characters for so long. And something about this strike kind of inspired me to break out the beat board and write this pilot that I really love, and get that going and start sharing it with people and getting notes and swapping ideas. And then the hope, speaking of, you know, somebody at a festival offering you a 2-picture deal, is I wrote a very personal feature about bipolar disorder. That the same time as working on the When You Became Us feature, the same line producer is actually, we're budgeting and scheduling that as well. That's a much smaller movie. It's basically a 2-hander, but it's based on my life and the life of one of my best friends and his brother who has bipolar disorder with schizophrenic tendencies. And we are very, very much not concerned, but I think mental health is always, especially bipolar disorder, is very fairly portrayed often in the media. I think it's the two narratives tend to be, without naming specific movies, the torture genius and like this disease is a curse, but it's also a blessing, and it's creating talent in some way or creating a new way. Or it's the kind of quirky version, which is a little tougher for me to stomach, where it's like, well, you know, you can get over this with the plucky power of love. And, you know, it's not great, but, you know, and obviously there are exceptions to this, but it's such a personal thing in my life and my co-writer's life, that it is, no, these people don't have to be geniuses. Their disorder is not a superpower. It's also not a death sentence. It is both tragic. It also is very funny. It can be a disease that creates a lot of humor, and a lot of people who have it understand that and acknowledge that in hindsight it is, but it's also something that I think is not adequately understood. And so our goal is to write a movie that I'm very, very, very proud of and really am working hard to start putting together. It's not about having a mental disorder. It's about, or a mental illness. It's about loving someone who has that. And what is the toll on a family? And I would never purport to know what it's like to have bipolar disorder and schizophrenic tendencies, but I do know what it's like to deeply love someone who is struggling with it. And it's a very personal movie, and it's allowing us a lot of creative leeway to visually explore what that love feels like and what that love looks like.
Sounds fantastic. It reminds me that I always feel that we're in a bit of a cinematic storytelling renaissance right now, where finally the truth is coming through. Like when I was young, there was an attitude among really the film industry that their bullshit version of they're like, I don't care if it's not accurate. We're giving the people what they want. Like there was a sort of a rudeness towards, like, if someone said, you know, this such and such movie completely misportrays said condition, they'd be like, hey, and I got to say, it's amazing. And maybe it's because I see so many indie films submitted to the two festivals, but it's just amazingly wonderful to see how the truth is a better story and a more impactful story. And finally, the bigger companies are now being led into it. Honestly, I think Beef on Netflix was one of the best things, and they didn't promote it as a thing about depression, but I think it was about depression. Yeah. And I thought it was the best storytelling about depression I've ever seen. Yeah.
And it was, and again, to your point, and that is the truth in so many ways. It's not like, here's your capital T, this is depression. It's like, no, this is something that seeps into everything. It's a part of a story, as opposed to, I think.
Yeah. And people acting out in anger it's not, it's not that they're laying in bed, yes, sometimes depression, you can't get out of bed, but sometimes it's a level of misdirected anger. And yeah, it's a wonderful time for storytelling, I think.
I think so too.
And the truth is getting through.
And the movie that I think really inspired me to write this and feel like I was ready for it was Eliza Hittman's Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, which to me was just such a searingly truthful telling of this this story about a young woman trying to get an abortion. And it didn't pull any punches, but it also did not at any point feel the need to gloss up or glam or to dramatize the facts of life that put this young girl in this situation. Create art and are compelling and are dramatic and are reason enough for being filmed and existing without having to pander to the audience or start to obfuscate whatever to hide the truth.
Yeah. It's as two white males talking on Zoom, I'm just going to add in that yes, at the festival level especially, but at all levels, it's wonderful that people are telling their own stories too, right? And boy, we get heartbreakingly wonderful stories, whether it's about sexual assault or this or that, but it's told from a point of view of people who've experienced it instead of a bullshit narrative that, boy, I can tell you as a member of a selection jury for 2 film festivals, you can tell when someone's reference point is other films and when someone's reference point is real life.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow. That's very well put. And I think we did have an era of filmmaking, even in my lifetime, that was all like, you're making movies about movies. You're creating that. And there's, maybe one name in particular that was particularly egregious of that. Whose film? It's Tarantino. And I like quite a few of his films. But, you get to a point where it's like, have you stopped to live in a while? Like, have you like stepped out of your house for a bit, man? But yeah, I think that's very, very well said.
That was cinema born from a video store.
Yeah, right. And every now and then he definitely glances on some truth, and God, they look beautiful. But
I'm a fan of a lot of it. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying. And
similarly, I don't want to imply I'm not. And I think part of it too, to me, is the boom and I hate the word content, so I'm trying not to use it, but the boom and opportunity that I think these new services allowed, and the democratization, kind of can't talk all of a sudden, of filming equipment, and I think of people sharing their lives, like YouTube itself. Like YouTube, I think, recreated this sense of like, no, I want to know how other people live, and film creates empathy. I think at its core, I think it was Roger Ebert, I think, was like, it's the most empathetic art form there is, because you're putting me in shoes. You're giving me senses to feel what it feels like to be another person. And I think, to your point, I think audiences are finally coming back around to why we love this medium in the first place. Empathy and truth.
If we fix things, I mean, we've both joked with the word socialism, but I mean, I guess I'm going to toot the TVHi horn and share that. I mean, TVHi is a socialist business model. 50% of gross receipts are shared evenly among everyone who provides, and I was going to use the C word, content, but
I know you have to. I mean,
don't have another. I know, because they're not always films. Sometimes it's a web series. Sometimes it's a stand-up special. But yeah, I could use the word videos. But yeah, it's just shared evenly. And the idea, and I admit, like, when I think about the strike, I'm like, God, what if 50% of all Netflix revenue was given to the creatives? Given.
And people are going to have the chance to make better work. And look, there's a lot of jokes, but if United Artists 2 wants to come back around and actually have artist-run studios, like you said, a much more socialist democratic model, I'll be the first person in line trying to get something made with it. And yeah, I mean, the gatekeeper, I hate to say, I believe there'll probably always be gatekeepers of some sort, but right now there's too much power and we're all hurting, including them. and this is hurting them too. The lack of sharing and success, and the lack of ability to maybe understand. What Bob Iger thinks is unrealistic is not what is unrealistic in the world. And there's a lack of touch and a lack of humanity that hurts the art, which hurts the culture, which hurts all of us, creative or not. And I think, like you said, hopefully this contract is a step. It's not going to be the only step. Like I said, this is a lifelong project. This is a step towards rectifying some of those mistakes.
And it had to happen. It was the timing of the contract being up, but yeah, 5 to 10 years ago, the idea that streaming should be treated differently from broadcast or cable was a terrible idea.
Yes, it was.
As it gave them the idea. They're like, oh, we can whatever. I won't go into it, but
yeah,
it's an endless topic. But there's a lot people can look up, and people do seem to care. And we are all more aware of what these things, what things cost and what goes. The amusing thing is you're a member of the WGA. There's 11,500 members.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like 100,000 people. Like I do believe in that meme that mentions Iger's salary and says if he took X pay cut, divide that among 11,500 people, and actually then they can all stop driving Uber.
We're good to go. Yeah,
it's for every Shonda Rhimes who owns 17 homes, there's 100+ writers who have to wait tables, bartend, and drive Uber.
And make ends meet and edit on the sides and help out friends and walk dogs. You're hitting on a really good point, and maybe I can make myself stop at this point. But we keep talking about the health of the creative class, not just in Los Angeles but anywhere. And unless we want all of our art to be made by rich kids whose parents can afford to subsidize them while they write and while they practice their craft and while they apprentice and they can help them rent equipment, we have to look out, you said, for the not Shonda Rhimes. We have to help people have the ability to live in Los Angeles and meet other filmmakers and write without constantly worrying about paying rent. Not because it's some sort of, this entitlement thing that a certain political party is bandied around as some sort of curse word, but because we know that's how this works. All of us are struggling to keep things made and tell our stories. And if we don't treat those people with enough economic and social respect to tell their stories, we're just going to have Nepo babies and rich kids telling every single story in Hollywood. And that's a very tragic place to be for me.
It is boy, that you did bring up the topic that from, I think, the second or third episode of this podcast, and I believe you're going to be around number 410, maybe 411, was being eye to eye with a filmmaker and saying, yeah, well, there's a lot of trust fund. Like when you're at a film festival, you can tell the landed aristocracy film from the, whether it's middle or lower, or whatever, someone who had to make it work with less.
Yeah.
And these two young women were saying, yeah, that film in our, what was the budget on that film in our block? And I'm like, yeah, I know that one was and it is always interesting. Sometimes there's great work.
Absolutely. It doesn't invalidate you for making good work. It's a specific perspective.
Yeah. And to your point, I was going to add that, when you move to LA, wait tables, bartend, drive Uber. But when you get hired in a writer's room, mm-hmm. That's the moment where you shouldn't have to do the side gigs anymore, right? That's what we're saying. We're not saying every ambitious writer should be taken care of. We're saying if they believe in you enough to hire you for a series, that really should be enough to cover, a season of a show. And now, of course, seasons are 8 to 10 instead of 22 to 24. But that should be enough to make ends meet for the better part of a year.
The better part of a year, yeah. And it'll then allow you to write your next pilot, to write your feature, to go look for something and to tell your story.
Because they need that shit written.
And then they're written. Like, exactly. Like, and I can only, every time I leave a room, if I have to go then work 40 hours a week, yes, I'm not, I don't have the 4 hours of writing and then 12 hours on set stamina I used to have, or it's dropping away. We need.
And you're better today than you were then, I'm sure. Like your skill set has grown. Yeah. So but no, there is a special period from like 21 to 25 where you can just beat the shit out of yourself.
Yeah.
For the love of the game. Yeah. But yeah, by, I don't know your age, but pretty much by 30, you can't even do an all-nighter.
No, and I don't want to. It ruins my week. I gotta plan this stuff out now. And that's exactly right. I would hate to think of all the stories, pre this new contract, all the people who got their break, learned a ton from a bunch of talented writers, and just literally never got the time because they had to go back to working a 40-hour a week, 50-hour a week job to then use the skills they learned to tell their story. And I think if we get this right, we can bring that back, because that used to be the case. That used to be the chance.
No, as a middle-aged person, I probably might be your dad's age, because your dad and I probably both saw Star Wars when we were like, but it's absurd to me that like, I know through the festivals, I've met several people, who are in a Netflix writer's room, a writer's room of a show that Netflix is funding or picked up. And 20 years ago, if I had a friend who got hired on, Hannah Montana, dude was set.
Yeah.
If you got hired as a writer on even a crap, I'm being very judgmental, but a crap made for cable Disney sitcom for kids, you got a home in the burbs out of that.
Yeah.
Like, you were good.
Yeah.
The people I know who are on the writing staff of shows that people have heard of.
Yeah. Can't.
They're still renting.
They're still renting, and they're like, and the minute that gig is up, you're like racing to the next one. Like, what can I do? What can I get my next gig? I mean, Alex O'Keefe, a writer on The Bear, he's been very vocal about this. His family had to pay for a tux for him to go to the Emmys or for the Writers Guild Awards. He couldn't even afford to rent a tux, and he wrote on The Bear, and one of the biggest shows of the past 5 years.
A show that, oh my God, it's all about the writing.
Yeah.
The reason why season 2 probably had the most absurd level of cameos I've ever seen.
Yeah, right.
Because all those actors watched season 1 and said, that show's so amazingly written and amazingly acted. I'm in. I'll say yes to anything. Anything to be part of that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it starts on the page, and it all starts on the page, but TV in particular. There's a reason the showrunner is the main creative voice and often the head writer as opposed to a director in a film, because the writing for all these hours of storytelling has to be perfect, and it has to spring from good characters that you want to watch for 10, 20, 30, 50 hours. And it's been a fantastic place to learn, and to continue learning. I would never want to say learn in the past tense.
Right? And they want us to binge, and we don't binge based on the faces on the screen. We binge based on the story.
Yep. And to your point, The Bear, none of them the first season were any people that are like, oh, I have to go see Jeremy Allen White. Shameless was great, but like none of them were these people that you're like, your point, begging to see that face, as good as they are. But they, along with the writers, were able to create humans, like real people to watch on your screen. And to circle back to the truth point, that always strikes a chord.
And to circle even more truth, my college roommate, after he got his bachelor's, went to the California Culinary Academy and worked in kitchens as a sous chef and whatnot, worked his way up. He can barely watch. He's like, oh, I love The Bear, but there are scenes that give me such PTSD. He's like, it is so accurate to the truth of working in a kitchen at a restaurant that some episodes I just have to like For him, it's like covering his eye. I cover my eyes when a snake is on screen. He covers his eyes when like it's a bad day in the kitchen.
I can't. Like, this is life. I don't need real life right now.
It's like it's damn accurate. Whereas when I was a kid, I believe Jack Tripper on Three's Company was a chef, and like it was the most bullshit kitchen you ever saw. So anyway, I don't mean to bitch about shows of the 70s and 80s, but boy, were our standards low.
Yeah, we've evolved, we've grown, we've stood on the shoulders, I guess.
Absolutely. All right. Well, hey, do you want to name website, social media for people to?
I think the easiest. I'm Instagram live from somewhere. LIVEFROMSOMEWHERE. I hate having to spell ever, especially out loud. And then production company that I did the short When You Became Us with. We're doing another short. We just did a little comedy short that I'm really proud of. I edited and DP'd that. I'm editing a short from filmmaker Alex Bucas, who is in When You Became Us, funnily enough. That's how we met as an actor. All of that. And then our podcast, my friend Bennett is doing on prison reform justice. He's connected with two former inmates in the Bay Area, and they're doing a really cool podcast called Bitter Fruit. That is all under Salt Cellar Productions, and we do everything through our Instagram. So if you are interested in like anything that I've talked about, Bennett Corden, my co-producer, is truly wonderful human being, and I'm really proud of the stuff we've been doing with Salt Cellar. And When You Became Us was the reason Salt Cellar was founded. So it's always fun to see what we've been able to, who we've been able to work with and kind of grow our voice, not just as filmmakers, but as a company and as the hope of a collective. So Salt Cellar Productions is I think, the place.
Fantastic. And I promise I'll make a clickable link, and I'll double check that the links work.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll email you if I get the spelling wrong or something, but excellent. All right. Well, I will now name the stuff I've got to name to get us out of here. But first, thank you, Nicholas Geisler. This was a ton of fun.
That was great. Thank you so much.
And people should keep listening, because if you listen to this podcast on the day it's released, God bless you. But there will be the next one after this one. I don't have the number in front of me, what episode number, but it'll be Nicholas answering the 4 questions, which is always fun. We'll find out what movies he loves and maybe a movie or two he doesn't. But thank you for listening. If you like and subscribe, more power to you. You could even be super nice listener and review the podcast. Hey, that doesn't hurt. If you want to learn about this podcast and the TV series that was born from it, you go to discoverindiefilm.com, and it's at DIF Wins with a hot and cool button if you want to cool your butt or warm your butt. I got to tell you, it's a good cinema.
Nice.
And the last thing to mention is, you can see When You Became Us on TVHi. That is a streaming service, an independent streaming service that I kind of co-founded. So you can learn about it if you go to watchtvhi.com, and it's on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, like that Fire Stick thing, Apple TV, Android TV, iPhone, and Android mobile. It's on all 6 of those platforms. And if you just type in TVHi in those app stores, you should find it. And it's all good shit. Really, it's all wonderful indie content and some vintage stuff. But the reason we named it TVHi is it does have that extra angle of, if you can use marijuana in a productive way, if it doesn't don't let drugs destroy your life. But if you're looking for something to watch when you're high, you should go to Watch TVHi. What can I say?
Hey, everything I've seen on it, highly recommended, and I'll never make that pun again. But I can vouch for that.
Oh, you make me want to ask you what you liked, but I'll wait till we're not recording.
Yeah.
All right, Nicholas, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone, for listening.